The very first time that I ever saw Mark Forson was he was giving a training in a zone meeting about the Book of Mormon and using the scriptures more effectively. And I remember just being really impressed with him. I don't think I had like a crush on him at that point, but I just remember like being very impressed with him.
We split up the missionaries into 3 separate groups, and then I went to teach her group, and I saw her, and I think that was the first time I really ever like recognized her, like really noticed her, and I was like, whoa, she is really pretty. That's the first thing I thought. And I just went on with the training and like continued training and things like that. And for the record, I'm pretty sure as I was walking, pacing back and forth, giving a training, that she was pretty much just staring at me the whole time. So I don't know if that was me making the first move or her, but I think she was pretty out to get me as well in the mission. So.
I would see him periodically, like every 6 weeks when he would come and give trainings. And then I remember after one of the trainings kind of like just thinking like, he's really cute, like he's a good looking guy. And just being like so mad at myself because I didn't like have intentions of going on a mission to find a husband or anything like that. And so I remember like seriously praying so hard. Like I don't think I've ever prayed harder in my life for something to like go away. And right before Christmas, I got transferred to a new area. And it was kind of weird because I was a Spanish missionary and Mark was an English missionary. And I got moved into Mark's district. And I remember just thinking like, no, this is the worst thing that could have happened to me.
I think that secretly I did hope that we like served together, like in the same mission or the same zone or something like that, where we at least get to know her a little bit more.
But anyway, so time goes on. This was the last 6 weeks of his mission. So he only had 6 weeks before he was going home. We had a district activity. We went bowling, and I think I was the only one that like took the picture on my camera, and I told everybody that I'd email it to them.
And then a little bit later, before I left, I was like, hey, I'm gonna email you and remind you to send me the picture. And she was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll send it to you. And then like, I think a week passed by after I got home, and I emailed her. I was like, hey, Sister Salcedo, are you gonna send me the picture? And so she sent it to me, but she also asked like a few questions like, how are you doing? How's home life? And stuff like that. And so we just started emailing after there. So I definitely had intentions like before I went home to email her, get to know her more. And she, like I went home 5 months before she did, so it was like a while that we could email. And so we emailed most of the time.
And then I got to a point in my mission where I decided that I just really wanted to focus on my mission. I only had a few months left. And so I sent him an email and just said, you know what, I'm sorry. I need to focus on the mission. And so he just said okay and was cool with it. And so I emailed him like a month and a half before I got home. At this point, obviously I didn't have very much time left to my mission, so Mark became a lot more forward and a lot more, like he was like, hey, so when is your homecoming? Like I'm gonna come. And it like totally freaked me out, like way bad. I was like so nervous about it.
And she's like really general about it. She's like, yeah, you can come. Everyone's welcome to come. So kind of like, she didn't even invite me. So I was like, that's not good. I was a little bit hurt because of that.
So then my homecoming came, and I remember walking in and like greeting some people that I knew, and then I heard somebody say my name from behind me, and I recognized Mark's voice, and I remember just like getting like this like shocked feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm like so nervous to see him. And he just said hi, what's up, and gave me a hug. That was really weird. I felt really uncomfortable about that. Mark had asked for my number when we were at the church building. He had already asked me out on a date for Friday. On Monday, I just spent time with my family. And then on Tuesday, I was with my friend in Provo. And I had been texting, and I said, hey, we're in Provo. We're not really doing anything. Is it cool if we come by and see you? And so he was like, yeah. And it was so awkward. Like, he was like sitting on a beanbag, and me and my friend were sitting on the couch, and Mark and I weren't talking to each other, even though we had been texting for a few days already. We just didn't really know how to like act around each other. So he was just kind of like talking to my friend, and I was just kind of like, oh. Anyway, and then I remember we left his apartment because he had to go to work. And I remember he had like, I was like walking out, and I had walked out in front of him, but my friend was in front of me, and he had grabbed my shoulder and pulled me around and gave me a hug. And I remember just like having that same like shocked feeling that I did at my homecoming. I was just like, oh, what in the world? Anyway, so then the night goes on. I had been with my girlfriends all day, and I don't remember how it all happened, but he ended up giving me a ride home, and we just kind of talked the whole way home. And then when he got to my doorstep, he asked me, like, what are you doing tomorrow? And I didn't have plans, obviously. I had just returned home, so I just told him I don't have any plans. And so he said, well, why don't we go to lunch together tomorrow before I have to go to work? So I said, okay. And he drove all the way from Provo to Elk Ridge, back down to Provo to take me to lunch. And I remember like just kind of waiting to like know where we were going for lunch. Like maybe we were making it at his apartment because he stopped at his apartment. But then he decided to take me on a scooter. And I was like so uncomfortable. Like so uncomfortable. He's like riding a scooter or whatever, and I have my hands like tucked into fists like on his sides because I didn't know, like I didn't want to be like all wrapped around him or anything. But anyway, so I just felt super uncomfortable. So we went to lunch. We just talked. It just felt really, really natural. The riding on the scooter didn't, but everything else seemed pretty natural. And yeah, so then we went to a museum afterwards, and just kind of, it was really cool because we just kind of got to like get to know each other, but like still have something to do. So he told me that he had to go to work, but that he would give me a ride home. And I had friends living at his apartment complex, so I just went and hung out with my friends for the day. And then so he had texted me and said like, okay, when are we gonna go home? And I just told him a time, and then he said, well, actually my friends are going longboarding. So do you want to go longboarding with us, or I can just take you home? And so I told him that I would go longboarding, and I had never been longboarding in my life. So that was probably a bad decision on my part. But so we decided to go longboarding down Provo Canyon, and we held hands for the first time because he, of course, had to protect me from falling off the board.
And it was her first time longboarding. I thought she might have died, but we made it down safe. It was the first time we got to hold hands as well, because I had to control her speed by holding her hand, so it was pretty great. And then we just dated every day that week until Friday, and we had like our big date.
Then on Friday, which was supposed to be our real first date, we just were together the whole day long. He came like at like 10 o'clock in the morning to come and get me for our date.
I had different places in mind. I asked some of my roommates like where to go, and there's like a sandwich shop that you can go to. There's also, you have like the museum that you can go to in Provo. We went rock climbing. We went to a taco truck, got food, then went up to a park and had like a little picnic there. And I think that night we had our first kiss. And I think it was more of me like going in for the first kiss, and she's like, wow, we just kissed. And I was like, it was a good night.
It wasn't like he tried to make it all like passionate or romantic or anything. It was just just nice. Like it was just a nice little kiss goodnight. And I had never felt like so comfortable with anybody. And the weird thing is it was all moving so fast, but it just felt like normal. It felt like that's how it was supposed to be.
I thought it was a great time, a great date. I don't know how she felt about it, but I felt good about it.
The next day, I knew that Mark wanted to hang out that night, and so I just told him like, hey, I'm going to a couple wedding receptions with my mom. Like, if you want to come, you're more than welcome to. And of course he was like, yeah, sure. So he came with me and my mom to a couple different wedding receptions, and he was just like a huge gentleman. He like opened the door for me and my mom, and when we were at the different weddings, he would get like some food and a drink for me and my mom. Like, it was just really cool to see the way that he treated her. And honestly, I think like they talked more that night than he and I talked. I think that was the night where I realized that I really could like see a future with Mark, because just in the person that he was, it wasn't like he was trying to pretend to be somebody that he wasn't. And he was just totally like transparent with his feelings the whole time. I remember my mom asking him like, so why did you move to Utah? Why did you come here from Texas? And him just saying, oh, I moved here to date your daughter. And then on Sunday, we went to go visit some friends from the mission in Park City. And Sister Brown is really, really close to both Mark and I. And We really, really love them. And we like had barely even like sat down in their front room, and they just started just grilling us, like asking us like, so like, are you dating? Like, have you kissed? Do you like call each other boyfriend and girlfriend? And I remember just being like, we've done more of like determining what our relationship is in like this like hour and a half that we've been with you than we ever have in the whole time we've been dating.
We answered them, played it cool, kind of stayed neutral with each other, but on the way home, I asked her, I was just like, so what'd you think about that? Like, how are you feeling about us?
And Mark didn't waste 1 second. He was just like right immediately like, so what did you think about that conversation? And I was like, oh, it was good. I mean, like, yeah, it was fine. And I just remember him saying something like, yeah, I really want to date you.
And we started dating that night on the way from Park City to drop her off back at Elkridge. It was like an hour-and-a-half drive or something.
And I remember just thinking like, I'm not ready for this. Like, I can't do this. I just barely got home from my mission.
And we started dating that night. And since we started dating, then I guess marriage just started coming up in like small ways in the conversation. I probably hinted towards it. Like, I think marriage is something that I wanted to lean towards, especially like just getting to know who she is on the mission. I feel like I knew her like really well on the mission, but then getting to know like her individual personality as well. Like after the mission, just going on a few dates and meeting her family was just awesome. So I feel like the progression really was really rapid in that pace, but I think it was perfect.
Just more and more kind of the same thing. I just felt like really comfortable, and it just felt so natural. So we decided to like make things official on June 28th. So I had been home 11 days for my mission. And then the next week, Mark had to go back to school, so we didn't get to see each other every day. But I remember seeing each other a few times that week, and we actually went up to Sundance to like the lift, the moonlight lift ride. And I remember just being on the lift that night, and Mark had asked me if my parents would be mad if I came to Texas for Christmas, which is where he's from. And I remember just being like, okay, we just barely started dating, like maybe this is a little too forward. And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know, I could talk to them, I guess. And I just said like, Mark, what are you planning on doing? Like, what are your plans with all of this? And Mark just said, I just am planning on dating you until I marry you. And on July 3rd, we were stargazing, and we hadn't said I love you at that point or anything. And I remember just laying there and like kind of just like feeling like this connection with him. And I remember I told him like, Mark, I really, really like you. And then just immediately after, he just said, do you think it's too soon for me to like say that I love you? And I said no, and he told me that he did love me. And I think at that moment, I just realized like he was the one, like that I didn't feel like I had to like wait for somebody to tell me that they love me, because I already knew. Because Mark, like I feel like his love for me is more so than just words. Like, it's very much in what he does and the way that he treats me and the way that he talks about me. I feel like that's how I really know. And that night we just kind of like made plans. We didn't have like a set date or anything, but we just kind of made plans with each other. And so on July 4th, I went upstairs in the morning, and my mom asked me how my night was. And I told her that it was good, and that Mark and I decided that we were gonna get married. And my mom, I don't know if I've ever seen her like more excited. Like I honestly feel like my parents and like my family love Mark probably more than they love me. And it was all it just felt so right. Everything just fell into place. Everything just worked out. So when he proposed to me, in his head, he was like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna surprise her. And I was like expecting it the whole time. I really did try hard, like not to guess what was going on and not to guess like, when is it gonna be? How is he gonna do it? But I knew the whole time. So he asked me out on a date for Friday night. It was the 31st of July. And I already knew that the ring was being made, and I pretty much knew that it was done. And so he was like, yeah, we're gonna go to dinner, and then we're gonna do something in between, and then at 8:15 we're gonna go get dessert with my family. So I was like, okay, so like in between dinner and like 8:15 I'm gonna get engaged is essentially what you're saying. But I didn't tell him that, obviously, because I wanted to like keep him thinking that he was like being real sly. So we had dinner, and all throughout dinner he was like checking his watch and checking his phone, like, so I knew he was nervous. He claims that he wasn't nervous, but I knew that he was so nervous about it.
I was never really nervous. I don't feel like I was even nervous when I proposed to her, although she probably said different.
And he was like, well, like what we're doing is really time sensitive, like we have to get here at a certain time, and like we can't get there before or after, like it has to be a certain time. And so I was like, okay, whatever. So we walked around the river woods for a while, and then we drove up Provo Canyon to this, it's just like a big open field kind of thing. And he told me we were looking for a butterfly orchard, which I thought was the most ridiculous story in the whole world. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna go look for this butterfly orchard. And it just was so convenient that there was a couple up there with a really nice camera and a GoPro. So, but Mark still like was under the impression that I had no idea what was going on. So he's like, well, let's go look around these open fields for these butterflies. So we're walking around, and this couple's like inconspicuously following us around this open orchard or open field. And then he was like, well, I don't think the butterflies are here, so maybe we should just go ask them to get a picture of us because it's really pretty up here. And so I was like, okay, finally, like we've been walking around for 15 minutes. And so we go over to this area, and the couple takes a few pictures of us, and then Mark said, okay, I just need you to take one more picture. And then he just got down on his knee and said, Hannah, will you marry me? And I remember, I wasn't surprised, but I remember just feeling like so emotional and feeling like so just excited that it was actually happening, and excited that I actually, like it was real life that I got to marry him. Just since then, like, I think I've always imagined it to be different. I always imagined it to be like 100% of the time, like lovey-dovey all the time. But that's like it's just not realistic. It's not how an actual relationship is. And that's something that I love so much about Mark, is that he doesn't try to pretend to be something that he's not. He doesn't try to, make things be all weird and cheesy or anything. That's not really either one of our styles. But he's just sincerely just good. He's just a good soul. I don't know how else to describe him. When he like really smiles, or like when he really laughs, he does it with all of his teeth. And so you can like see you could like count every single tooth in his mouth, because he just was like, has the biggest smile. And that's just like, he's just a really happy person and a really positive person, which is nice.
I love her personality, just like her spunkiness. Like she doesn't really take crap from anybody, and she's just like she can be really straightforward sometimes. But I also love that she has like a sensitive side as well. She gets really, I think, emotional about certain things. And so I just love the combination of who she is now, like after serving the mission, but also like who she was like before the mission, and like the experience she had that made her who she is. And I just love her, like her personality. I love everything about her.